I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. I'd like to recognize Michelle Frazee of Guilford, Planning Commission Chair. Nice to see you. I think we'll waive discussion of the rules of procedure, and I see that Peter has added 2 items to the agenda for this evening.
Yes, one is a letter of support for the Vermont River Conservancy. We can talk about that at that point. And the second is in addition to the executive session regarding the contract discussion.
Okay. And the change to the highway order is to have, change the agenda orders to move the highway to right before the executive session.
So Dan said he will be here, but he was going to be late, and so he requested that we move the highway update to just before executive session.
Thank you. First item of business on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 23rd or 26th?
It's 26.
26.
Yep, it's correct on the minutes, just not on here.
Good.
I did have something. Do you have them? It was a very minor thing. And I don't know if I can remember it right now, actually. It was right at the end. Did you have something?
I noticed something in the, and again, it's minor.
Oh,
listing
no, I found the one. It should say, it's right on the last page, and it's under communications, number 12, I. It's 12I, action, Richard, appoint. So it should say Richard motioned to appoint.
Removed.
Removed.
Or moved.
Yeah.
There was one thing we talked about.
I thought I fixed
Details.
Always.
No, it had to do with one of the individuals here that I believe was a resident but wasn't listed as.
Right.
But it's been corrected?
Yeah. I
Excellent. It wasn't a big deal, but I just thought it was important.
So, do I hear a
I
motion
move
to approve the minutes
as amended?
Second.
Richard is seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll move highway later. Michelle Frazee, you are up with the draft energy plan. Why don't you just roll your chair around here and join us?
Roll on up to the table.
Rolling chairs.
All the others. Here we go. Okay. Super sweet, short and simple. All that mixed up. I brought a couple copies, so it'd be official here. It is online. I'm sure you have all taken a moment with it. Please take it with you. Anybody else? I have 3.
I've had a few. I've had a few already.
That one. The stapler didn't want to go in. So this has been a very long process for the Planning Commission. It's been over a year. I was going back trying to figure out dates as we finalize our little checklist that we have to do to make everything official and making sure that all the dates were in line. And it's been near 2 years. A year and a half, I'd say, solid. This has been our primary focus. We've held 2 public forums, April 17th of last year, and then one just in March this year. There's been a lot of progress and process throughout it all. Thayer Tomlinson's been instrumental in attending as many things as she can to help receive information and bring it back to the Planning Commission and then apply it to the town plan. We've done our best to head in the direction of Act 174 compliance. We're not quite there, but we've set some nice steps, we think, for this iteration. We also will probably review it at the 2020. I mean, it's only 2 more years. If we can at least get this piece in right now, it's a huge leap from where we were. At our last meeting in March, there was nothing negative. I think a grammatical something was the only change we made to the draft, and this is the copy as it stands now. I printed it from the town website with the exception of the maps, which you have to reduce to get them to print on a page. So anyway, where we are at this point is the Planning Commission wants to submit it to you. I believe here you need to accept it to present to the public, at least state it, document it tonight in the minutes, hold it at a meeting. I think it needs to be 30 days from now. It may only need to be 15. I'm still checking on that. But there needs to be a window of time for the public to have comment or come to the next meeting. And then once that happens, it can be official. So I have this that I'm presenting you. I can also file it with Penny to let her know the Planning Commission's intentions. And then as soon as that step's done, I will send it on to the surrounding towns, Wyndham Regional and the state in the final step. But the Planning Commission's all set on our order of operations at this point.
Thank you. Michelle, I think that the law, BSA 4442 is
Yes, please tell me
not
exactly.
less than 15 nor more than 120 days after a proposed bylaw amendment or repeal is submitted to the legislative body of a municipality, the legislative body shall hold the first of one or more public hearings.
Right.
So we have 15 to 120 days to do it. And then failure to hold a public hearing within the 120 days shall not invalidate the adoption of the bylaw or amendment or any the validity of any repeal. Once we hold a public hearing, it is the select board's responsibility to adopt or not the amended section. So tonight we get it.
Yep.
And then within sometime in the next few months, we need to have a public hearing.
Yep. I will say on the Planning Commission's side of that, the sooner we can just check that off, the better, because we do want to try to preempt anything that may come, at least have it on file for any projects that may come to be. And there will also be a written report that goes with this. It's not going to be very lengthy. It doesn't affect too many specific people. It's a pretty broad topic, and we haven't done we're not proposing major changes for the town. It's more of a vision. And so, but Thayer and I are working on that, and we plan to have that finalized by next Monday. So you will also have that report to share with the draft for anyone at your subsequent meetings that you have about it. So
I have a question. So what is the legal process of this? Does this become part of the town plan and that we have to vote on it? I don't know why you were talking about bylaws, for instance.
So this is an amendment to the town plan that actually the Planning Commission agreed to take the energy section in 2015. The then Select Board asked the Planning Commission to please ramp up,
build upon it, to make it more.
Create a really a robust energy section to the town plan. And so this is an amendment to the town plan,
Okay.
so we do need to adopt it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this would technically be, once it's official, it could be printed and put all with it. And this is, you can see, it's the checklist for us is the same as if we were redoing the entire town plan.
Yep.
So it's a lengthy process.
It's a lengthy process.
And there's been a few people in town that have been interested in it and coming to the public hearings. I'm wondering if we could do it on the 29th. Sorry, what is our next meeting? April 26th?
Yes.
If we have this if we're going to have a
23rd.
meeting anyway at the school,
It's the 23rd.
I don't know how that would feel to you, but we could announce it tomorrow.
I
or
mean,
put
I
it in
plan
the
on being
paper.
there. I think it would be great. I know it's 14 versus 15 days. I think that it's a
Yeah.
perfect opportunity to have more people in town hear about it.
It's not less than 15, so.
Is this going to be for public distribution, this document that I'm looking at?
Yes, it's on the town website. Anyone can. I've
Can
put
I-
it in the Gazette that people can contact me for a copy.
I'd like to make a suggestion that it's somewhere it should say draft energy plan for the town plan, because it's not really, there's no heading on it.
Well, it doesn't on this, but like
Oh,
if you go to the town website, it says draft energy, and you know what you're
Okay.
going to.
Okay.
But yes, we can
Great.
write
I think that
that
would
at
be
the
a
top.
help for everybody.
And now that Michelle has submitted it to the select board, anyone who comes into the town office requesting a copy of it can legally be given a copy of it.
So, since we can't do it in 2 weeks, will you and Michelle work to find a date?
Sure.
That'd
And
be
we can do it at a meeting here,
Okay.
as well.
You mean, excuse me, I'm just trying to be clear. You mean we can have a hearing as part of our meeting or announce a hearing?
When we did the
town plan
when we
adoption.
did the town plan adoption, we had 10 people here maybe.
Uh-huh.
It's really
Um,
just yeah. Go.
It's just a formality, so
It is.
Oh,
so
I
it's
see.
an
Oh,
information
no, that would be
thing. We
great.
invite people to make comment on it, like they did on the flood and fluvial erosion hazard ordinance, or anything else. And then then the select board takes a vote. So
Oh.
it can be in a regular meeting. It just has to be warned as such.
Right, and if people do have hesitation or feedback, and it's more than a small amount, it does require a pause and then regroup and then another 15-day warning period to do it again.
Did we, in 2015, did we do it at 6 instead of 6:30?
We did start it
So
early.
we just started.
It was a separate meeting,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
it just ran from 6 to
Oh.
6:30, so
Yeah.
that at the next select board meeting, we could say, okay, or at the 6:30, we could say at our select board meeting, we've had our public hearing, we've taken
Yeah.
whatever comments or no comments, and therefore we're going to either adopt or.
Right.
So it would be finding a time when we could start at 6:30 or 6, sorry, or 6:15 maybe.
I'll be
Because this isn't the whole town plan.
It's not the whole
It's
town
not.
plan. I feel it's different. I think 6:30 would be sufficient. We have had 2 meetings on this, and even though we've had a decent number of people come out for something such as this, I don't feel it requires as much as the entire town plan
I
did.
agree.
So
Yeah.
everyone seems fully supportive of this. It should be an easy
Okay.
move on. I do have one more thing surrounding this, is that the night that we had our meeting in March, we, as a planning commission, voted to form not the planning commission, but as a subcommittee, an energy committee. And a lot of work has been transpiring with that. Nancy Detra and Thayer are kind of pulling in the reins on that. And they were hoping to have a meeting tomorrow, but they are still without power. Not power, but without internet and phone. There's just different things. I don't think it's just because of her, but there's been a lot of other people with difficulties in scheduling right now. So maybe next week, but I think there's around 8 people
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
already
wonderful.
that are interested in joining and like, at least seeing what's going on. We're also going to publish an article in the Gazette that's coming up this month and go from there. It seems like there's a lot of positive momentum for this topic in town, so I'm excited.
Well, and
Right.
I know that we all want to thank you and the Planning Commission for your overabundant due diligence
It's very
here.
good
you know.
work.
Well, it's always hard when you don't know what it is that you're supposed to be writing about, and a lot of research and learning has been done, and there's always more to do, and that's why we feel it's imperative to have a committee set to keeping up with it all, because it would be consuming for us if we did it as a commission. So we're happy to pass
Well
that
done.
on, and they can report back to us, and we're moving on to our next topic on Monday.
So,
Which is what?
We don't know yet. We'll decide Monday. So we'll be back to you.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
so I'm pretty sure I'll be at the meeting, but in case not, please express the select board's great appreciation for all the work that went into this, because it's pretty
Yeah.
Will
awesome.
do. Thank
Really
you.
good piece of work.
And it's a complicated topic, especially with the changing laws, so thank you for taking
It
that
is,
on.
and balancing Guilford and what's feasible in Guilford right now. And we might have dreamy visions, which can be possible. It's just going to take some time to get there. So, all right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you all for your
Thank
time.
you.
I'm
That's
gonna
great.
hang out for a bit, too.
Brava.
The next item on the agenda is the Guilford Country Store liquor and tobacco licenses.
So Mark has submitted their application, and in order for it to move ahead, the select board needs to make a motion as to whether or not you would like to grant them.
Is this a renewal or?
It
We
is
do
a
this
renewal.
annually.
They have to do this annually, yep.
I would make a motion to renew the Guilford Country Store liquor and tobacco license.
I second that motion.
Any discussion?
They're all in compliance with what there's,
Yep,
What they
and
need to
which
do,
is,
right?
yep, this is what these 2 applications state, that they have to be in compliance in order to submit the renewal. And part of this is Mark attesting to the fact that they have no violations and are
Terrific.
current. So,
All in favor?
Aye.
if you could all sign under the approved section, please.
Well, that's all good news so far.
And are there 2 things to
Blue
sign
bird of
here,
happiness.
Just one.
Just this?
Yep, just the one.
Okay.
Because you only need to sign off on the liquor approval. They don't need your approval for the tobacco.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a letter of recommendation for RTK Movers, and this is the group of people who drove to Cambridge. This is not the edited version. I edited a version of it and
You
left
did?
it on the drive. So
Okay, I'd already printed it out without edits, but I can print a new copy.
they drove to Cambridge. I worked with them there, and then it took them far longer than they thought it would to move everything, and I think they got home at 9, they arrived in Cambridge at 12 or 12:30 in the afternoon. They got back to this area at 9
Thank
p.m.
you.
and they were here at 7
That's correct.
a.m. the next morning unloading. They unloaded in an office where people were still trying to work a little bit and get around all the stuff that hadn't yet been moved out by other people, or people were moving things out for the other stuff to go to its next destination, and they were fabulous. They went above and beyond any other movers that I've seen do this. So they asked for a letter of recommendations because they're up for a big contract with somebody.
That's correct. They're
So-
working on securing a contract with the U.S. Army. And they, one of the things that would greatly help them in that is to have a recommendation from a government entity. And they said it doesn't matter how big or small, just having a recommendation would, and this would be consistent work for them instead of piecemeal. They would have a set contract for what they would do with this.
So I think what I would like is a motion to sign a letter of recommendation once it's the right.
So
I just
moved.
printed it.
So moved,
Second.
okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And Sheila, I want to commend you as well for finding, well, I don't know, discovering or retrieving all of this stuff and doing the attendance stuff. You know, that was a huge piece of work for you.
Yeah, we've been down once, so we're gonna go down again with a truck and a trailer to bring up some more stuff, because the Historical Society's got stuff. We have more stuff for you. There's a school in Westminster, the Compass School is getting some things. This town office is getting things.
Can I thank you guys
You can.
on record? Because, well, it's, you know, the Historical Society, I'm just the curator there. I'm not on the board. I want to make that clear. But as the curator, I operate inside that building. And to me, that's the life of the Historical Society. I see all the people that come to town that don't live here, don't live in our country, or researching their families. I spend so much time doing genealogy and just delving into all the records in that place. And because of the gifts of this whole, I don't even know what to call it, operation, I'm now going to be able to set up a classroom on the stage, to be able to have a place for people to come and research their archives, for the school children to come and sit around a table and receive, you know, worksheets, coloring sheets, whatever I've created. Like, they're going to have a place to congregate and sit down and explore instead of standing just, you know, it's like to some kids it's scary to walk into an old museum because things feel creepy or something, and I think it's going to help make it homier and wonderful. And it's beyond my $500 budget a year for the museum, and I can't be more thankful for the difference it's going to make there. So thank you.
The other, just since we're on that little topic, the other note that I want to do is I want to thank Peter and the office staff. It was an amazing amount of work to get rid of most of the old furniture. It went on to good homes for the most part. I think the dumpster that we rented was pretty empty. It was amazing to me to clean up a massive amount in this office that people, Penny told me that she had found stuff in her desk drawer that she didn't know was there since she started here. So there was an amazing amount of cleanup and reorganization, and then living through this, moving and stuff like that. And even today it looks way better than it did last Thursday. So Peter and the town office staff did a fabulous job of reorganizing too.
Thank you.
I would like to add, it's the most comfortable chair, and I've sat in 3 different chairs in my 3 years here, or 2 years, whatever it is. But thank you.
Yeah.
Back support.
I like
It's got back support and cushion,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
and it has wheels.
Yeah, I like the wheels.
Anyway,
The next is a letter of appreciation for Jeremiah.
Did you amend this as well?
I don't think so. And I just thought it would be nice, since he's leaving, for us to say thank you for the job that he did. So this was in the folder, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So is there a motion?
I so moved to send that letter to Jeremiah.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next thing is the Lister functions and options. Jeremiah, our assessor clerk, resigned. We now have Lisa and in her function, and she was pretty much sharing Jeremiah, and she kind of job shared, and then and Lisa is an elected official, and 2 other listers that are elected, Andy Cotton and Sean Murphy. So one of the things that was in our materials package was a organization, how we might want to consider organizing the lister function in Guilford here on in. I think it's worth having a discussion about this and not assuming that everything is just going to go in the best possible way, but to make sure that we know how to support the listers in their function, and to be very aware of the fact that, as Jeremiah said, the grand list is the town's biggest asset, and we need to be sure that we are on track with the structure that we have, or think about whether we want to come up with another structure or another suggestion and bring it to a vote in the town, or just, whatever. So I gave everybody food for thought. I don't know if people have comments. If you would like me to go through the recommendations a little bit, I don't know what the pleasure of the board is.
Was this in the materials Friday?
Yes.
Oh, then I totally missed it.
I did too.
I totally did not see that.
It was in a
Yeah, I
memo
guess
from
we
you that
better-
came on Friday.
Oh, I sent it before
Yeah.
last week.
Oh, really?
And then
I'm sorry.
I asked Peter to put it into
I didn't see
the
it.
folder, but I don't know if that it got done.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So I had sent
maybe
it out
we need to-
earlier a couple days before that, and then I said,
My
please
mistake.
refer to my earlier
Oh, I didn't
memo
see it.
No, I
in the
think
materials.
So
We
why
have
don't you
all
just
our
go-
materials together and we have them,
They're supposed to be.
okay.
That's why
'Cause otherwise I lose the emails because there's so many going all over the place, and so when they start getting, if I could have all my like an entire packet in order, that
Yep,
would be really
That's
helpful.
where that was the goal. What I had said in my cover memo to everybody was refer to the
Yes, you
email that I
did.
sent
You
earlier
did.
this week in case it wasn't in the folder.
I just
So,
missed it.
So per agreement, the board asked me to, I agreed that I should meet with Lisa. I did. And our 2015 hiring of an assessor clerk was the first change in a long-standing system of operation. The primary goals of that action in 2015 were to move much of the work burden from the elected board of listers to the clerk position, as well as to ensure that we had an appropriate expertise in place for the 2017 reappraisal. Another background note is that it is difficult to get even 3 people now to run for the
Right.
lister position, which leaves us a little bit vulnerable. And then I gave us a breakdown of hours worked. Since completion of the reappraisal in the summer of 2017, Lisa and Jeremiah worked an average of 30 hours per week in the 39 weeks from July 1st to April 4th. Lisa has estimated that the total number of working hours is about 1,200 hours a year, but the data doesn't correlate with her estimate. And I chose the period from July through April because it gets us through into the tax. It was after the reappraisal was completed, gets us into the tax season, through the grievances, and sort of through the winter, which is a little bit less burdensome, and then coming into spring. Extrapolating from they've worked 1,182 hours through last Monday, and a full calendar year would get them to a total of 1,577 hours, which would be 76% full-time position. And those figures, that figure of 1,577 hours doesn't include workshops, continuing education, sick, vacation, or holiday time. And if we wanted to consider making an offer for a position of regular full work year is 2,080 hours, which is full benefits, and includes sick time and everything, holidays and everything like that. A regular part-time position eligible for benefits of the town would be 30 hours or more a week. So Lisa and I reviewed, and I integrated this with Jeremiah's remarks, the primary responsibilities of the lister function, which are maintenance of the grand list, digitizing all aspects of the lister resources and work, fulfilling the state mapping requirements and mapping updates, supporting coverage activities provided by the town clerk's office, who get a number of calls on a regular, almost daily basis. And then I went into a little more detail in the paper on these responsibilities, but that's basically it. And so, for example, the state is digitizing maps, and we, Lisa and Jeremiah, got us a year's worth of a grant to do that for at no cost to the town for a year, and they have worked really hard to get as much completed. And in fact, this evening there were 2 people in here working on this mapping project until about 6:30, 6:15. Lisa and Jeremiah agreed that the vulnerabilities of the office actually these are this is Lisa's take on it. There are 2 software programs that she's not as adept in using as Jeremiah is. And we agreed that with training she could get up to speed on those. She also said the lack of a partner with whom to exchange ideas, to bounce things off would be a vulnerability for her. And also that she says the lister, I think by law, is required to be available to the public on a regular basis. And so it's worked out well between the 2 of them, and she's doesn't quite know how it would work out with one of them. We talked about options. Maintaining the status quo, which is to operate with the 3 elected listers.
And what is Lisa's, is she half-time?
She is working somewhere between 12 and 18 hours a week right now.
But remember, they're all hourly, and so it's really just on an as-need basis. It's not like she's here part-time, 20 hours a week or something like that.
She and Jeremiah traded off. Somebody was here 4 days a week in the office, but not necessarily all 10 hours days. We could hire Lisa to replace Jeremiah and appoint a 3rd lister until the March 2019 elections, or maybe the November 2018. I wasn't sure which one this was going. We could hire Lisa to replace Jeremiah and replace the elected listers with an appointed board. If we were to do that, if we were to consider that option, we would have to bring that to a town vote, and that could be in the November vote. And a variation of these 3 options is to recruit and hire a new assessor clerk instead of hire Lisa. So, Lisa's a stand-in for, if we want to continue with an assessor clerk, would we make an offer to Lisa, or would we do a recruit and hire somebody new?
Are we obligated to, if we're going to hire a new assessor clerk, are we obligated to advertise it and interview and put it out in the public, or can we hire Lisa without?
I think, no, we can
hire Lisa. We don't have to advertise.
Yeah. So I wanted to also say that right now the Jeremiah's salary was $20 an hour plus, and so that's a $31,200 base salary, and he worked so that's based on a 70% FTE, 31,000. And I just roughly assume that benefits would be another 25%, but I haven't checked with Penny on that. So roughly costing $39,000 to Guilford. Had Jeremiah stayed on in his salary on July 1st would have been $20.60 because the town voted in a 3% salary increase effective July 1st. The last note that I have is that I asked Lisa what she aspires to, and she said she believes that her highest value to the town is her familiarity with the town and with this process. She worked with Frank, whose last name I have forgotten, Rafferty, and for years, and then has definitely grown in this position, particularly working with Jeremiah. She wants to do more continuing ed to maintain familiarity with valuations in the region and in the state. She wants to continue taking classes toward certification requirements, and she'd like flexibility to accommodate her kids' schedules, school schedules right now. And if we were to consider replacing the elected listers with an assessor clerk or
appointed
or
listers.
a board of listers, appointed listers, the matter would have to be put to a town vote, and that could be on the November 2018 ballot. So that's basically, and I have the language for that if we need to.
So appointed listers, wouldn't that put us in the same predicament that we are in regard to listers, that there aren't a lot of people coming forward wanting to be listers, and in order to be appointed, we have to find candidates who want to be appointed.
Same, yeah, whether whether they run or volunteer, or you know.
Or,
so yeah, it is an issue to find. I think people who are interested and have the skill set. And for example, Dick liked doing it, but he has no comfort with the computer skills required in the software. So he, you know.
May I speak?
You may speak.
One of the other differences is if you hire an assessor versus having elected listers, they don't have to be residents of Guilford to fill that position.
Right, yeah. And the other consideration that I didn't talk about here is that right now it's an elected position and there's no accountability to the select board, or, you know, they're accountable to the voters. But if we were to hire an assessor clerk, that clerk is accountable to the select board. So it's another.
But we can have an assessor clerk and elected listers.
Yes. We don't have to, you know, we
That's
could.
what we have now. That's
That's
status
what we have
quo.
now, right.
That's status quo.
Yeah.
Well, actually, what I'm saying right now is the status quo is 3 elected listers because Jeremiah's already gone. The status quo was a assessor clerk and 3 elected listers. And so, open to discussion, thoughts?
Did Elisa seem enthusiastic about wanting to stay on and take the job?
I did not. All I did was have a discussion with Lisa. I did not make an offer to her. I am not in a position to
Right.
negotiate with her yet. We have not agreed that that's what we want to do. If we wanted to, that would be an executive session discussion.
Did you get a sense in having a conversation with her that she was content with her relationship in the town is doing this type of work?
Lisa has
In general.
changed.
Can I just say that I think that if we're going to do a contract negotiation or have a discussion about an actual employee, that it should be, I think, in executive session,
Good.
a personnel
Very
issue.
good.
But I
Thank
think
you.
that if it's the broader,
The options.
are we going to do this? Are we going to do that?
Good.
Are we going to, replace Jeremiah or not? Then I think that's a public discussion, and that's
Fine.
totally
So
fine.
I think, that's why I was trying to discuss the
I
options
understand
that we
yes,
have.
Yeah. But there are some contingency overlappings.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, we could discuss that another day.
So I guess I would say I would like to replace Jeremiah to have somebody that's there at steady time, because he did have, as part of his job, had steady office hours, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I
that
agree
stability
with you.
for the public. So
the
that
two of them maintain steady public, reliable, steady
Yeah.
public hours.
And I would expect any assessor clerk to have a steady office hour situation as
Yeah.
part of the job description. And I think that's what's key to for
And I think
public
going back
access.
to their relationship, that at least I heard from Jeremiah specifically, that's why it works so well. Lisa spends a lot of time as a lister in this office compared to the other 2 listers. And it was important for Jeremiah, and he reiterated that piece too, that someone being here. I just want to make sure that we would have the same type of relationship, with whoever in another lister, because it would still not be full-time in the sense that we would have that person here all the time. So.
But I agree with Gabby that it's really important to have somebody here who can deal with the public, because these issues of taxes
And even set hours would be
It's-
better.
and assessments, people are very concerned about.
Yeah.
I'm ignorant about the training of assessor clerks and whether there are lots of them around. I mean, just in terms of finding somebody who is competent in this area and who might want to take a job with our time parameters. Does anybody know more than I do
I
about
think
assessor
it's-
clerks?
I think it's a rare a rarely available skill set. I think Jeremiah was in demand throughout the state
Yes.
by more than our town, served at more towns, and certainly got a better offer than what Guilford was able to provide him.
Madam Chair,
Sir,
I'm Ian Keel, BCTV cameraman, not resident of Guilford, but I was just curious, the school system I know often has people in positions where it's part-time at different schools. Are there any other small towns that might share?
that's what Jeremiah was doing.
Oh.
So, I mean, he was partly in Dover, partly here, partly in Vernon, and then partly with Nemrick. So
Guilford didn't just lose Jeremiah,
Yeah.
some other towns
Yeah.
did as well. I see. Thank you for letting
Yeah,
me
thank you.
interject.
So,
Do we have to vote on whether, on one of these options?
Again, I mean, I would just be hesitant personally to have another thing on the November ballot. Let's take care of the bylaw that we have pending. We still don't have a communications plan for that. Let's put that in effect and get that to November. If we, I mean, this is my personal opinion. Like, let's do one thing and focus on one major change at once. I feel like personally, as taxpayers, it's already overwhelming. I think with the fluvial erosion.
fluvial and flood erosion hazard
Hazard bylaw, it's, you know, it's complicated enough and it's emotional enough, and understandably so. So my opinion would be do one thing at a time and get the communication out and do it well.
And
So
not-
when,
And table and keep the status
Until-
quo as far as having an assessor clerk with 3 elected listers. And if we want to revisit that plan at a later time, we are, you know, we can, there's always an annual town meeting. We don't have to
Yeah.
do it for November.
I think the important issue here is, do we want an assessor clerk or do we want to try to survive without one? And my sense of this discussion is we want an assessor clerk if we can get one.
yeah.
yes,
Yes.
Is that?
I feel that way.
So if that is the sense, then I think that we would go into executive session to discuss how we might do that.
Okay.
And I don't,
Good point.
I don't think we need a vote on it. I think we just have the sense and we will consider how to do that later on. Okay, thank you, everybody. If anybody's curious, that document was in an email and it's...
No, I found it.
No, I found it too. I just missed
Yeah.
it totally.
The next thing on the agenda is the capital improvement plan and source and use of funds. And I want to say that I was blown away by the work. I don't know, I know, Gabby, you worked a long, long time on this. I have no idea how much, Richard, you did. I know
Helped a
Danny
little.
was, but
No, but it's really good.
I
It's impressive.
think that Guilford has rarely and probably never seen as thorough, well laid out, comprehensive, and useful a financial planning document as we have here. And I think that this document is going to serve us well as a plan and a map for future boards for years to come. I mean, you have just created a masterpiece, Gabby.
It's really great.
And
Very
every
helpful.
time
We
I
have never
read
seen
something-
anybody throw around Excel like
I
this woman.
know.
I have never seen.
It's great.
I'm in
mean,
awe
it's-
of that too. But and I know Danny, you and Gabby worked a lot, and I just every single thing I looked at was incredible. So kudos to you. Thank you so much. And I think maybe you could walk us through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just a question before, will this document be available on the town website? Because we can't explain to our studio audience every single thing here, but it's really amazing.
It could be on the, I don't see why not to have it
Yeah.
read only on the town website, knowing that this is in draft form.
Yeah.
It's a draft on it, you know.
Because it's going to, I mean, it's going to become the capital improvement plan that will be available to everyone. This is the draft of it.
Well, the clarity of it, I think, would really contribute to people's sense of security about what we're up to.
We could
Is
stand
there
up,
an extra copy that we
Yeah.
can
Yeah,
share?
there's a couple.
and then
Danny,
and Gabby, what I would like to know is, So, you know me, I went through everything and I have some questions. So do you want to do the whole thing and then have people ask questions, or do you want questions as you go along?
Oh no, it's fine. I was just going to walk through it. I mean, I just wasn't sure how clear it was.
It's very
What
clear.
exactly happened with all
Crystal clear.
with the workbooks. So what we did is we got our capital needs assessment, which laid out a 20-year plan for all of our buildings except for the town office. I then sat down with Dan and we went through all of the capital needs, which would be equipment, bridges, and culverts. Peter contacted the Historic Society and Richard spoke on behalf of the library to talk about sort of their priorities. And that's each what I did was there's a tab in the workbook for each of these. So highway equipment, bridges, culverts, and we did culverts greater than 6 feet because those are going to be the expensive ones. The town office renovation, assuming that if we renovated the town office, there'd be no capital expenditures in the next 5 years. And this is only a 5-year out budget. The Historical Society and the library. In each tab, it's laid out for this fiscal, the partial FY 2018 year, and then 5 years after that, by either equipment or the renovations that needed to be done on the buildings. If it was from our capital needs plan, if it was a 6 to 20 year expense, that was pulled down in a different part of the spreadsheet, so you still had all of that information. The capital needs assessment for the buildings, I just pulled their costs with inflation. For everything else, I just used an annual 3% increase for cost of inflation over time. So we had an idea of sort of what we were looking at in the near future. And any comments, so if you look at the bridges, we listed every bridge and we found one that was not on our roadmap that needs to be included. And then the status of every single bridge, whether it was very good condition, excellent condition, just like a high, medium, low, along with what, if anything, needed to be replaced, and the approximate time when, and the approximate cost, and then if there was a potential grant we thought we could use, which is basically a structures grant. Same thing with all of the buildings, and that's just literally pulled from our capital needs assessment. And then for the town office renovation, we used $350 as we discussed as a placeholder. All that feeds into the first summary spreadsheet, which is capital expenses. So you have all the details about the status of each item for each building or a piece of equipment, and then it all feeds into the summary, capital expenses by category. And then there's just an annual total, and then a 5-year total pulled across. The issues that I didn't include and wasn't sure if we wanted to include were sidewalks and any water line repairs. Okay?
Yeah. So
if you're gonna, just so you know, because I'm gonna hand this off to Peter, who's now in charge of the spreadsheet, right? So all the sub spreadsheets feed into the capital expense summary. And then what I did was I did a different spreadsheet for all the potential sources, which basically were our capital reserve fund, highway reserve, bridge fund, Act 64 reserve fund, and then there's the Algiers waterline project. And the potential grants are structures, municipal planning, implementation grants, grants and aid, if they do that again, CDBG and Better Back Roads were all the ones that sort of I could think of, and I'm sure Peter can add to this. But what I did was do sort of a worst case scenario, like assume we don't get any grants. But know that we could use the spreadsheet to adjust for any grants in the future. I pulled all of the sources and the uses together in the one that says sources and uses. But just so you have all the finite details. And what we did, if the top one, the top half is sources by fiscal year. And again, it has the same sources, reserve funds and grants. And we started the FY 2018 partial. Those were the current reserve fund amounts.
I actually updated,
unless they changed.
I updated two of the numbers in the printout that you have.
Okay. Okay. And then below is all the uses, which all fed in from the uses spreadsheet. Okay. And then under the second half uses, then you'll also see a little sub-column source. So you'll see where Richard and I proposed to pull each of
funds
the
for
funds
the-
from
yeah.
it, and then it's deducted in the prior years. Fiscal,
So it
feeds forward, and you can see that. So I did everything longhand, so it should be pretty easy. And then I also added my, well, I'll talk about it in my assumptions page. I set forth all the assumptions. So I assumed that we were going to have a contribution of $250,000 annually added to the capital reserve. I assumed $60,000 to the bridge fund annually. I assumed no money to the Act 64 fund, no money to the Algiers Waterline Fund. Oh, I forgot. I have to update this. I assumed there would be a $40,000 overage to our capital fund that we would be rolling over from our prior
Every
year's
year.
budget.
Yeah.
And $30,000 from, let me just look what I did. Oh, sorry about that. I knew I missed something.
But it went into the formula, right?
It went into the formula.
Oh, you
So
just didn't
reserve
know
fund,
that,
I
right?
added $40,000 annually and just assumed we'd have an overage. And then the highway reserve, I assumed a $50,000 overage that rolled into the highway reserve fund annually. And I added those and then subtracted the prior year's expenditures, okay? To get the estimated next year's fiscal
Gotcha.
reserve fund balance. And then it's all rounded to the nearest. Because it doesn't matter, I mean, to the nearest 100, because at that point, we're just projecting anyway. And then the last page is the list of assumptions. So I didn't account for any possible grant funding. I didn't account for any emergency, just the capital expenditures, nothing, no surprises. And then, of course, this is meant to just be a starting point. Richard and I just, made these proposals on our own, looking through the funds and what we felt comfortable with as far as decreasing the funds to a certain extent and guessing where we could get other funds from. And so, yeah, it should just be a starting point to know whether we can do something with the assumption that it'll be updated regularly so that every year you can go through and see what do we really have, and I would assume that happens at budget time.
Right.
May I ask two clarifying questions?
Yeah.
One is with the capital fund, are you proposing to increase the amount for that to $250,000? Because currently for the past 2 years it's been $225,000.
Oh,
It was
I
250
thought it was
3 years ago, and the last 2 years it's been 225.
oh, okay. I had thought it was $250 every year, so.
3 years ago it was $200,000.
I'm wrong.
So it was at least the past
I
3
just
years
picked
was
2.
200, 225, 200,
Yeah.
and Dan's confirming that as well.
So,
So I was just wondering if you're proposing to
Nope, that was
increase
a mistake. I just thought it was $250.
And then the second question was, are you proposing to no longer fund the Algiers water line? Because that's currently being funded, since FY14 it's been funded at $24,500 a year.
No, because that was an outstanding question. So what I did here was said, okay, I'm just going to assume we're not funding it because I didn't think we funded it this year.
Yes, it was.
no,
It was
is-
funded?
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay.
yeah, there was a transfer. However, apropos that fund, we learned last summer that there's little to no maintenance or repair costs on that, and anticipated not to be when we were having conversations with Brattleboro. Steve Barrett, I think.
Yep.
And there was a memo, we went over this.
Yeah, I remember. That's why
So we have $194,000 in there, and we might consider not funding it for a few years to, because it's more than adequately funded for what Brattleboro considers our almost no level of vulnerability. So, that's one thing to consider, not a decision to be made now, but, and if we didn't fund $24,500 there on an annual basis, we might put that up into the capital reserve fund if we needed it. But big picture, oh yeah, and there's one other source of funds in 2021, which would be a potential source of funds, which is that the town obligation on the bond, the $50,000 debt, that we carry every year, is finished on April of 2021. And so there's another $50,000 in our budget that could either go back to taxpayers or be put into a reserve fund of some sort. So we're looking at a possibility of another 75,000 there in funds available. And you raise a good question, Gabby, about Act 64. Should we be, if we have 118,000, I don't know the implications of that act and what it might cost the town. So should we have more money in that? And how do we assess our ongoing obligations and vulnerabilities? So I think that we need to look into that.
I hope everyone checked on my cells and make sure I didn't do
Are you
pull
kidding?
from
There's
the
no
wrong
way in
place.
the world I would ever be. Can I just say one thing, Michelle, before we open this up? So, biggest picture, if we look at sources of funds and uses of funds, if I'm reading your spreadsheets correctly, and this is not taking into consideration your corrections, Peter, we have $1,343,000 in source of funds for the rest of this year, and uses, if we were to do everything that we said, is only $534,000. So, and then the next year we would have $1,200,000, and our uses would be $300,000. And the following year we would have $1,075,000, and our uses would be $630,000. So there's a healthy reserve balance at any time during this year if we do everything that's been recommended through the capital needs assessment program, and if we buy Danny every piece of equipment that is on his dream list and need list, and if we don't spend $1 million or $2 million on the Fitch Road Bridge.
Because that went into 300, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We did a patch.
Yeah. And,
I didn't know that was even, I knew something was coming, I didn't know that was the number.
That's
Well,
a
it
big
was
number,
1 million
Danny,
or
right?
300.
$1 million or $2 million?
It's $1 million.
Look what it cost to do the Bonneville Road Bridge now.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
And we had grant money for that too, right?
Yeah, that was, that cut was what, 80, I think 80,000
Yeah.
on that one? And that bridge is over $1 million.
Yeah, but it,
Or I'll say close to, it was like 800 and something.
right.
So today I had asked Peter to check the balances on the reserve funds and also to note what grants we had received year to date. And he was not able to get that done today, but he will. But this is basically the most expensive, everything, worst case scenario, no
Right,
grants coming into the town, which means I think we're in a pretty healthy situation to go ahead with doing the best thing that we can for making sure that things are maintained and taken care of in this town for a good long time. And I can't thank you enough for giving us this roadmap. I think you've got us a good few questions for us to answer, other things for us to look into, and many steps to take into consideration here. But I think that this is an excellent roadmap. So
There's definitely a way to do, and we did all the maintenance, which was suggested on the CNA,
Yeah.
which a
Yeah,
lot of it
there's
was
a lot.
deferred.
Can be
So I think once we go through the first 5 years, we should be in a better place anyway as
Yeah.
far as maintenance.
yeah,
Gabby, did you mean that the maintenance had been deferred prior to this? So
Yeah.
this would get us back to where we should be.
I one comment
Richard.
is that you talked about grants that are expected this year, or no,
that we've received
that
to
we've
date, or
received.
that we're applying for,
Okay, so-
or that we anticipate
right.
applying for in the future.
Because a very wise supplement to this would be an overview of grants, possible grants, because that's going to help us to understand how much
Yeah.
more money we can
Yeah.
possibly.
Save.
And
So-
I think maybe the goal would be to get reduced taxes.
Yes.
If we can
I
take
don't know
care
about that. Reduce. That's a tall order, but I think at least having the grants in place, because now you know the project. So now Peter
Yeah.
can say a year out, don't start this project till I research what I think
Yeah.
we could do.
But we need that list of
Absolutely.
what's out there and what we might expect to get from those grants.
especially for bridges.
Yeah.
And understand like those are going to be structures grants. So which ones do we want to pick and choose because you're not going to get structures grant every year. So
Right.
how now that we have a fuller picture of where our timelines are,
How come
we can best utilize our money right in our grant
and
placement.
program which grants we're going to go after? This is awesome.
And so,
Bridget,
I had a question. You had brought up possible sidewalks and that wasn't included here. What would be the right framework for, is it making a decision about sidewalks and then figuring out how to fund them?
Well, I just wanted to be clear, I didn't include that in our infrastructure capital. So no water and no sidewalks, because the last grant that we applied, the Better Connections,
Better Connections
was structured
Feasibility.
around how are we going to plan downtowns, and that would include sidewalks, because walkability was a big part of that grant application. So if you're talking about, okay, now we're going to do all these sidewalks, well, somebody has to pay for them.
Right. No,
Yeah, but part of that grant application was pushing the fact that it would be nice to have sidewalks.
Right.
Not necessarily it's a necessity to
No.
completely, but it would be nice.
But I want to keep it on our radar, because if this is something
on
we're
Collier
gonna,
Road.
this is something we're going to plan for, then this needs some grant money, because sidewalks don't come cheap.
Right.
That's my point.
And they need a plan. I mean, they need to be composite of a plan,
Right.
and they're not in the CNA
Right.
now.
Right.
No.
And that's why they weren't included.
It's true, but walking up the steep roads of Putney to my car this morning with traffic going by, I was really grateful that they had sidewalks.
Yeah.
One other question about a reserve fund is that we might want to consider an emergency reserve fund because we don't have one. And there's no more funding coming from the state or Vermont Yankee after this year. So I just put it's another action point for us to consider at some point. Michelle, you had a question? Or?
Yes, basic, and I probably missed the answer at the beginning. Excited to look over this. This is very thorough and amazing. So thank you for having it all laid out here. I was just curious where the expense amounts came from for each line item.
So the buildings all came from the capital needs assessment.
So he provided a dollar
It was
amount
part of
for-
our, what we got as part of the capital needs report. So he provided an estimated dollar amount. The equipment and road stuff came from Dan.
And it doesn't mean that we've gone out to bid on anything.
No.
No,
You know,
I
it's a
totally
bidding-
gather that. I mean, some things look a bit, I
No,
can't
no
speak to this
figures.
because I don't know anything about
And
that.
those figures that I gave for some of the bridges could be awful high.
Right.
I'm just using that.
Well, that, I mean,
you know.
maybe there, some other items look extremely low, just with certain things I know too. So I was just curious about that. This is great, and
It's a best
it
guess.
seems like a really incredible step forward of getting caught up for the town.
Yeah. Yeah, again, thank you so much. I think maybe our next steps are to consider, well, we'll certainly have information to use for the meeting on the 23rd,
22nd.
May 20, next meeting at the school, when we are going to present the town office renovations to the public. These will put us in a very good position to talk about that. And as we go forward, we can just use this as a map and a measuring, a way of measuring our performance and really planning where we want to go and when we want to do it. So
Chasing grants.
I can't think of another way to say thank you.
Cheers.
But thank you both. It's just, and Danny, thank you for putting your time into this too.
Yeah, Dan put a lot of time in as we
know.
went through the map with
You
every
could
single
see.
bridge.
And Lasagna, right?
But it's good to
Those
have that on
every
paper.
culvert.
It
It
is.
really is. It's really helpful, Dan.
So where will this document live?
We have a capital needs assessment folder on the
Google Drive.
on Google Drive, and it can be capital needs and source and use of funds. I think that might be the logical place for it to keep, to stay, so that we can all look at it, and it's a living document.
But how does it get into the town? Will that give it entry into the town business?
No.
You
We
mean
could put it on our website
You
as
can
a,
put it on
as
our
a,
website.
as a
what I
draft.
thought.
I can
Yeah.
put a,
But-
No, I'm not
PDF.
speaking of, I mean, when it's finished, when the draft is, let's say when it's complete, where is it going to be so that it becomes like our budget, where it's a document that we have,
I see what you're saying.
that the town has access to. This is our capital improvement plan. So what are we going to do with it? It has to be inserted into the operations of the town.
Well, I think I mean, now that Peter has it, it can live with the town administrator, but I think a better point is maybe we should include it in the town report.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that that's a hell of an expense. And we should
That's a lot
refer
of
to
pages,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, we should refer to it as existing and available online or at
Right.
the town
Or
administrator.
just do the
Or
word
just-
sources and uses
Right,
just
right.
for the next
Sources
5
and
years.
uses or something like that as
Yeah.
a 2-page.
Because we should really be talking about our capital plans and what we're planning
Yeah.
and why we're doing our budget a certain way anyway.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think we could include that at next town meeting as a way of introducing this and making sure people are up to date on it. Michelle?
I just want to say, I think of it, this is always communication and transparency talk in town. I think any way to just help share this is amazing. I think it's simple to read, understand. It helps show your efforts and breaking it down and trying to figure out the future of what the town is, and if people are trying to, see where their money, this is a great document. So if it could go on the town website, I just want to say I think it would be an excellent idea.
I can, if the select board wishes, I can put a PDF copy of it up.
Yeah. I think there are some corrections to make in the assumptions.
Yeah, let's wait until.
And some
Yeah,
notes.
It'd be nice to have the grant stuff included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it
That's
up
really
there.
important.
Well, and also, I think for the sake of people who aren't familiar with this, have an explanatory paragraph about what they're looking at as a preface to it.
I think Gabby
on the
wrote a really good introduction for us when she sent this last week. So-
Right, well, I mean, I'm just saying that in putting a document like this on the website, we should put
Some
that
explanation.
introduction.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
emphasis, I think that one emphasis I'd like to see is that it's coming out of an assessment, the capital needs assessment that was done by an outside firm, familiar with how to do what a town needs in regard to repairs and maintenance.
And also, this satisfies the policy that was passed in 2015, finally, that we're getting to where we intended to go 3 years ago. So that's superb. Any more discussion?
Peter, did you want to say something? We were talking about the grants and you were saying something.
I was just going to say, it was just minor, but I did put in the minutes to show your recommendation to include the grant information as
Okay.
an addendum to this.
Great.
Gordon, do you want to do the warrant?
We still have to do the letter of support for the Vermont River Conservancy, because that was an addition.
Oh, excuse me. Letter of support for Vermont River Conservancy.
So hopefully this will be brief. There are copies of this for all of you. So as you hopefully remember, at the last select board meeting,
I think it
Steve
went to the
Libby,
audience.
Steve Libby
I've read it. We could give it to somebody else.
from the Vermont River Conservancy came and spoke with Steve Lemke regarding the Meadow Conservation Project in Green River. And last Monday he contacted me asking if the select board would consider providing a letter of support for them. So they have, feel free to look at it.
Thank you.
They have received a verbal confirmation from the state of Vermont that their letter of intent to apply for a grant which would cover approximately 50% of their expenses for purchasing this property was approved. And to finalize that grant application, they actually need a letter of support from the town. And so unfortunately, he had a very busy week and was traveling last week and was not able to get this to me till this morning, so that's why you have not seen it prior to now. So,
And it's due before our next meeting.
He needs this, in order to complete the grant application, he needs this prior to May 3rd. That is his deadline. So unfortunately, it couldn't be on the next agenda. So he kindly apologized for the tardiness of it, but also kindly requested for you to consider making a decision about this tonight.
Do I hear a motion to
I
approve
move that
a
we,
letter of support for VRC?
Yeah, and I'll second it. And by way of conversation, I think he made a very strong and very timely presentation. I was so glad that we had such a robust audience to see all this, because it's such a positive for the town, and for them to come forward and make this, go through all of this work for the good of the Guilford populace and the good of Guilford land, you know, is just something we should support.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for writing the letter.
You want to do the
Yep.
warrants, Gordon?
So I'll make the following motion that we pay payroll ending week April 1st, 2018 for $6,517.50. Payroll ending April 8th, 2018 for $7,027.94. An expense warrant number 1819 for $22,457.26. for a grand total of $36,002.70. On the expense warrant, there was nothing major that stood out. I saw highway such as gravel, plow blades, and chains as probably being the predominant things, as well as oil for the town somewhere. So those were the major things in that expense warrant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Do you want to start passing those around? Did you want to do communications before Danny's highway?
Yeah, that's what it was. So several of these are relatively brief, and I believe that most people know now that Mike Hebert is not going to be running up again, and he just sent out a very nicely written letter to the select board, just stating, you know, his privilege in serving the town. You may, of course, as well as, you know, why he's making the decision that he is, and yeah. So that was that. Additionally, we had some communication from the Franklin Land Trust in that they will be sponsoring their 13th annual self-guided recreational bike ride called the D2R2 on Saturday, August 18th, to raise dollars for Franklin, Hampshire, and Windham counties. And so that will, part of that will be coming through Guilford and ending at the Timber Creek Dam as it has for the past 13 years.
Can we discuss that? Because last year it was, I think there was,
No, just one.
like on a later meeting, but how they're gonna organize with the town and signage and what they're gonna do, because it was pretty busy last year, and from what I understand, it was listed in one of the biker magazines as one of the top 10 races in the country. So as it gets more and more popular, like last year, I know I heard complaints, and I know I was driving and they were just across the road, and it didn't seem very safe.
Sure.
For anyone, either the person in the car or the people across on the bike. So as it gets larger, I think it would be maybe a discussion about how they're going to guide people.
Sure.
And what the expectations are.
Sure.
Did they say anything in their letter?
They do not. All they state is that they anticipate approximately 1,500 riders this year that will be staggered leaving times between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. from Old Deerfield, Massachusetts, riding at their own pace. They're supposed to stay in groups of 2 to 5 riders.
They don't.
And they also put up the porta potties by the bridge and stuff like that. So I just think that, you know, how they're going to coordinate with fire and life safety and, you know.
In the different towns, or in our town.
Or at least in our town.
Yeah.
I don't care about the other towns.
So I think that's a good idea. Thank you, Gabby.
I've got my pen.
Just writing down the note.
That's fine.
And then, last but not least, actually at the last select board meeting, and due to the nature of it, and he not knowing about it, Wayne Esty stopped by, and he is going to be running for Vermont State Senate, and he dropped off an informational letter to be shared with all of you. He wanted to have an opportunity to introduce himself but that did not have that chance.
Thank you.
And so it's a fairly lengthy introduction letter, so I won't read it at this time since we have additional business to attend
thank
to, but it's for you to review in the future. And that is all for communications.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a couple of things? Because I know we had like it was 2 months ago the address change issue up on Bullock Road. Is that coming back?
It is.
It is coming
Okay.
back,
Yeah.
yes.
And the same thing with WRC and because I'd like to update people in like what's going on with Wyndham Regional Commission and things like
Oh,
that.
that
So I
was
wasn't sure if because that was
delayed.
from January it was tabled, and I was just wondering if that was coming back
I don't remember.
anytime soon, or if it could come back sometime
We
soon.
can certainly.
I mean, it doesn't
put
have to be next meeting, but it's
Yeah,
I
it
would
should
like
be.
to update.
we can put on the
Everyone.
meeting for the 14th of
Yeah,
May.
whatever works with time wise. I just want to make sure that didn't get dropped.
Nope,
I think we might be doing E911 next time.
that is correct.
Yeah.
No, not on the 23rd,
Oh, no?
that's on the 14th, because the 23rd is the informational meeting at the school.
But if it doesn't take 12 minutes, we can have another, we can have more on the agenda.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Zambrowski, welcome to the meeting.
Do you want to roll up?
Bring your
You guys can throw water bottles at me if you want. Well, we've just been grading roads with this weather. It's been kind of wacky, so I mean, we're just waiting for the weather break so we can start getting out, rolling some dirt. And of course, the heavy winds we had the other day, that kept us pretty busy. All the trees and stuff down, so. But other than that, we've just been doing our regular routine dirt work, so.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, I was out and around on one of those really terrible wind days, and I saw how busy the road crew was trying to keep up with the damage. In fact, I saw Dickie Garland standing up outside of the truck, and I didn't even recognize him because I'm only accustomed to seeing the top third of him. But, I mean, it was quite a time for all of us, and the
We had
road
some wires
crew was.
down, and
re-
we had
Yeah,
to keep, make sure traffic didn't go over the wires. And,
yeah.
it was a long day.
I discovered Bennett Road.
You'd be surprised how many people only know one way around town.
I didn't, and I've been here for 50
There's
years.
a lot of people who don't know any other ways.
Wow,
So.
a good opportunity.
Well, at least you're not suffering through the worst mud season on record.
No, that's been pretty good.
That's about to come.
Yeah, knock on wood, right?
Green River Hill is just starting to,
I know.
cold spots are starting to let go,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it was over
it's
there.
not
wasn't
as
it?
bad as I've seen it.
That's good.
But we get a couple good warm days, you never know, they could fall apart. And I have pulled posters on some of the roads that I know
yeah.
are good, so. The
Excellent.
only ones I got posted now are just the main arteries, Lee Road, Bonneville, Sweets Pond, and State Road, so.
Great.
Great.
Thank you, Danny.
Thanks.
Do I have a motion to enter into executive session?
I move that.
Would you just wait a minute? Per VSA in section 313A1 to discuss personnel matters, and per 1 VSA section 313A3 to discuss contract details.
Was anyone joining
And
us?
anyone joining
Is
you?
anyone joining us?
Well, I didn't know
I
because.
don't know what the contract for.
That is regarding 5 Maples.
Okay, and inviting Peter to join us.
And Danny,
And Danny?
because that's part of the.
Oh, personnel matters,
Yes.
sorry, okay.
Thank you.
Did anybody move?
Richard.
Oh, you started to move.
I did.
And I will
move.
second.
Goodbye, everybody, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
And Gordon seconds, so we're gonna enter, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, executive session at 7:45
God, we're
PM.
moving along.
Okay.
We are exiting executive session at 8:11 PM. And I need a motion, right? Can I read this?
Yeah.
A motion for 3 things. For Dan Zambrowski to make an offer to the candidate of his choice for a road crew position. To authorize Peter to continue negotiating with 5 Maples. and to authorize me to enter into negotiations with our choice of assessor clerk.
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What?
I just don't know whether that last one is worded correctly. Can we just
To enter into
With our
negotiations with
choice
our
of-
choice of assessor clerk?
Yeah.
candidate, assessor clerk candidate?
We will amend the motion to, I'm sorry, would you make a motion to amend the motion?
I make a motion to amend the motion to add assessor clerk candidate.
All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Would anybody like to move that we adjourn the meeting
I will.
Second.
at
Yes.
8:13? Meeting adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Who moved that?